To the channel once again where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective, and today will be no different. Today we're going to talk about why fast food is so dangerous. And I'm not just talking about the fast food that you pick up from the drive-through, but I'm also talking about the fast food that you grab at the grocery stores as well. Things that are in packages, things that are highly processed, ultra processed foods. I'm going to explain why these foods are so dangerous. Now, I know that in our minds, our first thought is that, well, they can't be too dangerous. They're in the stores, you know? But when you start to look at where America ranks when it comes to healthcare, among the developed nations, we're ranked number 37, okay? Now, put that in perspective because we have, bar none, the most expensive healthcare system in the world. We have the most expensive medications in the world. We have the most expensive technology in the world when it comes to medical care as well too. And we pay the most for health care as well too. Put all those things together, it's a recipe that says that we should be at least in the top 5. But despite that, we're at the bottom of developed nations, okay? Somewhere around 36, 37, okay? Now, with that being said, one of the key factors is what we're eating. 60 to 70% of the standard American diet is processed foods. When I say processed, that is the equivalent of fast food. Because what happens is once it's become processed, now it's easy to digest. Okay, this is why most of the food that people eat today is very soft. Okay, that's why most of the food that people put in their mouth, it literally melts in their mouth. They barely have to chew it. And this is also why you're starting to see so many people with dental issues as well. The teeth are starting to crowd because our jaws are getting more and more narrow. And it's because we're not eating foods that have a lot of fiber in them, eating foods that require us to actually chew, okay? And that's because most of the food that we're eating today is actually processed foods. And let me explain what I mean by process. Process means that it's gone through a refining process, okay? Most of the times that means a chemical refining process, whereby most of the fiber has been ripped out of it, okay? Most of anything that is valuable has been ripped out of it, and now it's being replaced with unnatural things. This is what makes it fast food. The best definition of that, or the best way to look at it, is instant rice, okay? If you were to go get wild rice, okay, you may have to boil and cook wild rice for hours if you don't pre-soak it. But if you cook this processed version of rice, which is instant rice, you can cook it and have it in 5 minutes. And that is the difference, okay? So it's really important to understand when you're buying food in the supermarket, if it's not from the produce section, it's essentially, to a large extent, more than likely, ultra processed. Okay, now there are exceptions in the store, depending on what store you go to, but if you look on the label and it has more than 5 ingredients and some of them you can't pronounce, it's a very good idea that it is processed, okay? So let's jump into why these foods are so dangerous, because again, I know that it is common to go through the drive-through and pick up something really quick on the way home from somewhere. It's common to go into the store and buy food that is not with ingredients that you don't have to make from scratch. Okay, so it has become a commonplace, but you have to understand that this is a relatively new idea when it comes to how we prepared our food for thousands of years. Okay, so reason number 1, processed foods are so dangerous. I mentioned it before because all of the nutrients have been ripped out of it. This is why when you look on the front of the box, it'll say enriched with, enhanced by. And then they'll have these lists of maybe vitamins or minerals or what have you. It's important you know those vitamins and minerals are unnatural. They're synthetic. They don't come from a natural place. And the reason why it's had to be enriched is because it was made poor through the processing, okay? All right, through taking that natural food and processing it so that it would last a long time on the shelf, all right? And they do that by adding a whole list and litany of chemicals, which we're going to talk about. Number 2, which is why fast foods are so dangerous, is because they are chemical soup. Most of the fast foods that you're consuming today, when you look at the label, you can't even pronounce half of the names. And the reason why you can't pronounce half of the name is because they're chemistry. So if you are a chemistry major, then you would know exactly what many of those names mean. But because most people didn't, either didn't take chemistry or don't remember chemistry, you have no idea what those things mean. I'll give you an example. There's an ingredient called trisodium phosphate. Now you will find this in paint thinner. You'll also find this in heavy duty cleaners as well too. Okay, trisodium phosphate. You know where else you'll find that ingredient? In some of your kids' cereals, like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, for instance. Okay, so you'll find those same two ingredients, one in paint thinner and the other, that same ingredient you'll find in your children's cereal. Okay, so you begin to understand why we're so sick today, and even our children are so sick today, all right? But again, number two, because fast foods are a chemical soup, they're laden with preservatives that include things like parabens and nitrates. Both of these can cause cancer, okay? They're laden with pesticides, food additives, dyes, potassium bromate, which is also carcinogenic. PFAS, which are forever chemicals that stay in your body forever unless you detox, okay? Even BVO, which I've talked about before, brominated vegetable oil, which is a stabilizer. But again, this is something that could be very carcinogenic as well, and also neurological, okay? Have an effect on your brain, okay? Also, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners. Even heavy metals are found in processed foods. So you can see why I say a lot of these processed foods are chemical soups, because I just name individual things that could be in these food products, because that's exactly what they are. They're not food, they're food products. But most of the time there's a combination of these things, many of them, sometimes 2 and 3 of different types of preservatives in one food product. Okay. Now imagine giving yourself daily doses of something that could cause cancer. Okay. Then it makes sense why the cancer rates are soaring today. 1 out of 3 people in the US are going to have cancer in their lifetime. Okay. So number 2, they're literally a chemical soup. All right. Number 3, fast foods ruin your gut. Okay. They ruin your gut. When I say they inflame your gut, and then they inflame your body, which is another one I kind of gave away, but they ruin your gut because they kill the good bacteria in your gut. And once the good bacteria is dead, now the bad bacteria will be overrun in the gut. Now you're gonna have some real gut issues, okay? Number 4, weight gain. Weight gain because guess what? These foods are low in nutrients and high in calories. Very low in nutrients, things that you actually need, very high in calories. Okay, so weight gain is a natural part of, if you eat a lot of fast food, you're going to gain weight. Because most of the times you're eating and drinking empty calories. And what I mean by empty, there's no nutrients in this. There's nothing of value in most of these foods. Anything that would have been of value, it probably was either fried out or the chemicals in the food neutralized it. Okay, so weight gain, number 4. Number 5, as I mentioned before, it inflames the entire body. So I'll meet people all the time who say, I got inflammation in my knee, or I just feel general inflammation all over the body. When you eat something like this on a daily basis 3 times a day, you're giving yourself doses of inflammation that set the body on fire. Okay, so it's common to see people who are inflamed who eat these type of foods. Number 6, your mood swings. Food equals mood. Okay, food equals mood, which means that it's also going to drain your body of energy as well too, because the food is where you're supposed to be getting your energy. Okay, number 7 is going to elevate your blood pressure. Okay, because most of these foods are loaded with salt. All right, back in the days, they used to sort of salt a lot of foods to preserve it. But now they're using a chemical salt in these foods. It's not a natural salt, it's a chemical salt. So quite naturally, it's going to elevate your blood pressure. All right. Imbalance your hormones, number 8. All right. Because a lot of these foods have what are called endocrine disruptors. And these endocrine disruptors will cause you to produce a lot of estrogen in the body and throw the other hormones off as well too. Number 9, diabetes, because as you know, they put sugar in everything. They put sugar in ketchup, they put sugar in bread, they put sugar in everything, okay? So of course, eating a lot of these type of foods are also gonna cause diabetes. And number 10, heart disease, the number 1 killer of all human beings, all right? So those are just 10 of the things that fast foods could create a fast death for you, okay? So I'm not saying this to judge anybody, but the big thing is we have to understand when we're eating food, our idea of food and the idea that these food industry people who make food we have 2 totally different ideas. Your idea is to get fed and to eat something nourishing. Their idea is to create a product so that it lasts long on the shelf and it'll create profit. Okay, so it's really important. You got to understand the importance of eating slow food. Okay, slow food I call it slow food because it's all natural food. Natural food, you have to actually chew it. All right, you don't put it in your mouth and it just melts away. All right, so when you're eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, you got to chew that food. All right, so that's why it's slow. The other reason why it's slow is also because it metabolizes slow as well. All right, so if I put a piece of refined carbohydrate like a bread or a pasta, in my gut, that sugar is gonna spill out really quick. As opposed to if I eat a fruit, that fruit has fiber in it. Also has water because we can juice that fruit and get water out of it, okay, and make a juice. So it's fiber and water. The water dilutes the sugar. The fiber actually holds on to the sugar, and as the fiber is broken down, it releases the sugar very slow. So that's again why I call it slow food. We had to transition to slow foods, more natural foods, more raw foods, okay? So I hope this has been helpful. Comment below, let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you're gonna start to transition away from this food that is no longer serving us, okay? And let me know if you've started one of my detox start to get rid of a lot of the toxicity that we talked about that is in this food if you're transitioning off that diet. And also let me know other kind of content you would like me to sort of post in the future. So I hope you have enjoyed this. Until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.